Hey everyone, welcome to the second annual Ionic Enterprise App Summit. We're so thrilled to have you. We've got a great event planned today. Thank you so much for joining us. We know you're going to love it. Before we get into all that though, I want to thank all the wonderful speakers and sponsors that we have today. We've got so many great speakers from enterprise companies and other really interesting businesses that are building mission critical apps on the Ionic stack. They have so much to teach. Really some great talks that you'll be seeing today. And then finally, I want to thank our great sponsors for joining us and supporting the event and really being a part of the Ionic community. Thank you all so much. And this year, we actually have an official app for the conference. And of course, it's built with Ionic and a special version, which we'll talk about in a bit. And it's also built with Capacitor, our native app runtime. If you want to check it out, it's on iOS and Android because, of course, with Ionic, we release on both platforms on day one. That's just what we do. And so check it out. Either search EAS21 in the iOS or Android stores or scan the QR code. And I'll leave that up for a few seconds so you can do that. Really excited about this app. The team did a great job putting together the talk agendas, speakers, sponsors, and there's one really good reason to download the app, which is we are doing a swag raffle. So we designed, actually Julia, one of the designers on the team, designed a really amazing shirt, one of our best designed swag items that we've ever done. You're definitely going to want this, so download the app. And then go to the swag tab and register to enter the swag raffle. We're going to be giving away some swag, so you definitely won't want to miss that. So if you haven't had a chance to scan the QR code, do that now. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. All right, let's hope it's scanned. Okay, so you might be wondering why we're hosting this conference. What is this conference all about? Well, we work with a number of enterprise development teams and companies that are building really important apps with major investments in them. And we've seen trends across the industry. We've seen challenges that these teams have faced. And we've also come up with our own opinion about how enterprise teams should be building apps and what the future of enterprise app development looks like. So we're pretty opinionated about this at Ionic, as you may have noticed, and we believe that the future of app development for the enterprise is going to kind of look a certain way. And that first opinion that we have, and probably the strongest opinion of all these, is that we firmly believe that when it comes to building software in large companies, developers are the future. Developers are the ones that are doing the work of building software. And every year there are thousands upon thousands of new developers that enter the workforce. And as a company trying to build a capability to build amazing software, people are the most important part. So we believe that all the wonderful network effects of developer communities and training and schools combine to create an amazing pool of talented creators that we believe are going to be the future of enterprise app development. And this might seem obvious to you, but there are a number of alternative approaches to building software that don't require developers. And there's nothing wrong with them. We just think the scale of the problems that companies are going to be solving, the number of people they need to do it with, the pool of engineers is going to be where those companies search to find talented creators to build that software. We also believe, as you might know, that the web is the best platform to bet on. We say always bet on the web. The web is the universal runtime. It runs everywhere. It's super stable. And for a large company where you're already facing incredible challenges both competitively and in the broader market, something that you can rely on, that you can depend on, that's highly productive, that's easy to hire for, those are benefits that really matter to you. And so to us, the web is all about being the most practical, high productivity, easy to hire for solution that you can depend on for the long term and deploy apps everywhere your customers are with the least amount of investment in multiple different code bases. So for the enterprise, the web stack just makes good sense. And so we believe the future of enterprise app development is going to be based on the web. Number 3, which might be a little bit of a shock to some of you, we also believe that for companies that are building their own app development proficiency, traditional open source models are actually failing most enterprises. We've seen the enterprise market go from proprietary lockdown solutions and then going all the way to the other end and going full open source, community maintained, volunteer maintained. And we're starting to see that fail a little bit for large companies, because the problem with traditional open source is that there are no guarantees for any of the technology that you're building. There's no guarantee of support. If you have an issue and your app is pulled from the App Store and you have a component that needs to be updated and it's the weekend and you don't have any kind of dedicated support for those components, you're kind of out of luck. And if you're a company putting a large investment in your app, that's just not good enough. And so we see traditional open source, when we talk to our customers, one of the things they love about Ionic is that we offer something different. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But traditional open source is proving to be a challenging world for enterprise companies because they don't have those guarantees of support and maintenance and security that they expect from their other commercial vendors. Ionic is forging a new path forward, taking these strong opinions and creating the future that we think is going to be the best model for enterprise app development. And I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So the number one piece in all this is an open source foundation. I just said that traditional open source isn't working, but there's so much that's good about open source. And any solution that's going to power enterprise apps is going to be open source at the core. And so Ionic's open source foundation gives enterprises the flexibility, the focus on standards, the dependability over the long term, the auditability, etc., that really, really matter to them. The ability to go hire developers that can work on it. These things are critical for enterprises. They're never going back away from the benefits of open source, right? That is clearly the future, and we think it's a cornerstone of our vision for the future. But just like I said that it's not scaling, traditional open source isn't scaling, we believe that you need to extend that open source model with that enterprise grade cloud features, native functionality, security, and delivery solutions that enterprises need on top of all that. So it's not enough to just have a few open source components. You need to take the next step and integrate with the enterprise environment, have features that are highly secure that enable apps to be secure out of the gate. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, wrapping all that with professional grade support and services that customers love that they can depend on. And so for us, we've taken open source, we've added integrations and functionality into the enterprise environment, and then realized if we're going to get big companies to depend on this, they need to be able to call us. If they have an issue and it's a weekend and their app is down and it's a really big problem, they need an expert that they can depend on to help them. And that's something that we offer. And if you think about the average open source projects that you use, that's pretty unheard of. You can't really call anyone and get special support from most of the components that you use in the open source world today. And so this is something I really want developers to think about, because most of us think about this when it's too late, when you didn't have that assurance up front and there was a problem and now you're stuck, and now your mission critical app in the App Store has a problem and there's no one there to help you. This is a problem that is completely avoidable, and it starts by thinking about what happens when things go wrong. And I want a partner, an expert at my side in the absolute worst case, But even in the best case, where they can help me be better when things aren't going wrong, when they can advise me on best practices, code reviews, and being ready for changes in the front end and mobile ecosystem that come every single year. Having this kind of assurance is really, really special. And this model is clearly working. Ionic has built something that enterprises really, really love. With over 300 enterprise customers from every single industry on earth, clearly the approach of taking open source and focusing on enterprises and supporting all of it for mission critical use cases is resonating. And along the way, we've built a robust, sustainable business that's seeing fast growth and is sticking around for the long haul. And I want to thank each and every single one of our customers for trusting in Ionic and depending on Ionic. And we truly are here to serve you and make sure that you're successful and you're able to build the awesome apps that you want to build. So thank you so much. So with that out of the way, what can you expect to hear about at the rest of the conference today? Well, there's three big themes that you're probably going to hear over and over. So let's take a look at those. The first one is micro experiences or micro front ends, and we kind of mixed the two concepts. This is a trend that's on the rise. We're going to hear talks from Amazon, Modus Create, about how the model of building apps, whether that's mobile, whether that's web, is shifting from large monolithic solutions built by a single team where all the code for the app is self-contained, it's not portable, it's not shared with other teams, to a model that's much more component-based and modularized. So I think it's helpful to look at this visually. Traditionally, you'd have one team building one app, maintaining all the features and functionality in the app, and generally the code would live in one place. We're seeing a pretty profound shift in how companies are looking at building apps in general, and it's shifting to building reusable, modular components and micro experiences that are not necessarily built all by one team. So in this example, we might have a search bar that's built by one team, a shopping cart that's built by another, a purchase flow that's built by yet another team. And you can see how, as a very large company, you're going to have individual pockets of expertise and focus across the company. And it's not possible for one single team to manage all that. So being able to share those components, being able to reuse them. So let's say you build another app and you want to bring in the recommendation experience. You can do that with micro front end and micro experiences. So this is a trend that we've seen kind of organically. Ionic customers and users started doing this using the Ionic stack. And so we're really following our users and customers' lead here and trying to build solutions to solve their micro experience problems. So just to recap, why are micro front ends becoming such a thing? Well, it's all about focusing on doing one thing well and having one team manage something that they're really, really good at, and then reusing functionality across multiple different apps. The days of re-implementing the same search experience or same checkout flow, it just doesn't scale anymore. And so you need to be able to build something once and reuse it in all the apps and components that you're going to need. Being able to build, test, and deploy your apps in parallel, so having one team be able to ship an update without having to rely on another team, that's really, really critical. And then enabling developers to move more quickly, ship features more frequently without waiting on other teams. Simply put, micro front ends are portable and run anywhere. And if this all sounds familiar, it should, because Ionic recently rolled out its own product around micro experiences called Ionic Portals. Ionic Portals is fast becoming one of our most exciting products, and it's all around making it easy to embed rich web experiences into native and hybrid apps. In many cases, apps that are have already existed for many years, and enabling those teams to enhance the way they work in a number of key ways. The first is that Portals enables teams to take existing or new web experiences and then deploy those into an existing or new native or hybrid app using any technology. It doesn't matter what the app's built in. Those teams will be able to take those web experiences and bring them into their app. And if you think about micro experiences and micro front ends, this is one key component of it, because you could have a different team who built and maintained that experience and then pull that into the native app in a seamless way where the experience feels just as good as any other screen, but that experience was built by a different team, potentially in a totally different language or technology, and they can release in kind of out of sequence and whenever it makes sense for them. These portals have full access to native APIs and hardware, so they're not sacrificing any of this functionality either. This offers teams to do some really interesting things if they're open-minded about it, enabling their web team to contribute to their native app. So the web team could build new features, new experiences, deploy those immediately to iOS and Android without really the native app team having to do any work, and certainly not having to implement those features natively. All of this enables much faster development, and for teams that adopt it, a superpower of being able to update the app remotely without having to resubmit or rebuild the native binary. So being able to deploy offline enabled web experiences at any time is kind of the last remaining pillar to enable this agile development flow that's critical for micro experiences and micro front ends. The second big theme you're probably going to be hearing a lot about today is design systems and the rise of reusable component systems at scale. We've got a great talk from Thorsten Jankowski of Volkswagen, who's going to talk about building a very scalable design system across Volkswagen and all their different sub-brands using Stencil, one of our projects, which I'll talk about in a second. And so design systems are obviously a huge trend. I'm sure you've all heard of them. And it's a trend in our world as well. If you aren't familiar with design systems, there are different definitions, but the way we look at it is being able to standardize styles, branding, and components across multiple different properties. So the way you might think about it is you built a button that's styled for your brand and then be able to share that with all your different apps and websites. So this helps reduce design fatigue and consolidates component engineering, so you can have multiple teams focus on what they do best and what's unique about their app, and not reinvent these components over and over and over. As a web developer myself, I've been there where I'm implementing the same components that another team has already done, and now mine looks slightly different, or they have different styles, or that shade of red is slightly different. Design systems are meant to solve that problem, so I can focus on what's unique about my app. And this is a huge trend across the industry. Major companies like Volkswagen, Salesforce, Intuit, and HubSpot have all pioneered design systems. They built their own technology in some cases, or they're using technology like our Stencil project. And so this is a massive, massive trend. And one of the key Ionic projects that enables this is Stencil. So Stencil enables reusable, scalable component libraries and apps at scale. And it does that by enabling teams to use a agnostic component programming style and then generate web components that run anywhere they need to. In fact, feel native to popular frameworks like Angular, React, and Vue. And so building a design system or a component library around Stencil is a superpower that enables you to build one set of components and then deploy those to all the different technologies that your teams might be using. And we've used Stencil very successfully internally for Ionic framework and Ionic's UI components. It's enabled us to maintain one single code base of components and then deploy those to Ionic Angular, Ionic React, Ionic Vue. And if you are intimately familiar with the Ionic upgrade experience, you'll know that ever since we've moved to this approach, upgrades of Ionic have been much easier, and we haven't even had to consider ever having to change our code for future components or frameworks, because it's always just going to work with this model. And then finally, the third trend that you'll be hearing about today is IoT and connected devices. We've got a great talk from Brandon at Bobcat, who's going to talk about building a connected set of machines and pulling data from different machines in the field and building a great app experience around that. And I believe they're also using some CI/CD features from Ionic's AppFlow cloud product. So really looking forward to that talk. With all these three concepts, I hope that it'll be obvious that today's theme is all about how teams are delivering incredible mobile user experience and UIs using the web tools, languages, and frameworks they know and love. So as you're listening to the talks today, I want you to ask yourself, would this be possible without the web? Because in many cases, the answer is no. And when we talk about the web, and sometimes it feels like a philosophical or religious war, and it's really all about benefits to the business. We think the web is just very practical. It solves business needs. It solves business problems. And that's why we're so focused on the web. It's just incredibly practical. It enables you to do things that aren't possible if you use native technologies or non-web-based technologies. So just ask yourself today, would this benefit that this talk is focusing on, would it be possible without the web? Because in many cases, the answer is no. And that's really what makes us all in on the web, is it just enables superpowers that really give developers and companies the ability to do amazing things. All right. I want to talk a little bit about Ionic's product vision moving forward. I want you as Ionic users, Ionic customers to understand how we're looking at our product and our platform and where we're going to be taking it at a high level. We see Ionic really evolving into a single opinionated app platform that gives you everything you need to build, secure, and deliver the apps that power your business. So historically, Ionic was very much a piecemeal experience. You'd find some components, some UI components, pick some native plugins, find a cloud service, etc. We've built and we're building a much more cohesive single platform that's a little more opinionated, where you can use our app development SDK, integrate our app extensions like Auth Connected Identity Vault for authentication and security, tie in cloud services that pair perfectly with the app that you're building, like live updates and a new one I'll talk about in a bit. And then support all that with amazing world-class support that customers love and services that enable you to build bigger and better apps utilizing the expertise here at Ionic. So when you think about where we're going, we really see this as a single platform that you can use across your whole business. So you might today just have one team building one app with Ionic. I want you to think about Ionic as a platform that the entire business can use, and maybe they use different parts of it, but really seeing it as this single platform to completely revolutionize your app development process in your organization. So we start with this product vision with the enterprise-focused app development SDK. So you might be familiar with the Ionic command line, the Ionic UI components. Today, they're kind of separated, a disparate experience. We're tying that together to make it much more focused and opinionated, so you can start apps that are already set up for enterprise integrations, enterprise extensions, the functionality that you need as an enterprise developer, whether that's templates, special UI components. So that's the vision that we have for the SDK layer. And then on the app extensions layer, Ionic today is really the only cross-platform company that offers enterprise-focused solutions and third-party plugins fully supported by the mobile experts here at Ionic. So when you think about what you get with Ionic, is you get a kind of an extension to your team. So you have to build a biometric authentication flow or a single sign-on flow or encrypted data storage. Historically, you'd have to build that yourself, maintain it forever, and if it broke, you were on the hook. With this model, you let us worry about that component. You let us manage the authentication flow, manage the biometric flow. And if you think about our customer base, now 300 enterprise customers and growing, the benefit to you is that a single customer who has an issue, that issue gets fixed for the entire customer base. The lessons that we learn from a single customer propagate to all the other customers in the business. If you took on the biometrics component, you'd maintain it yourself, and all those lessons that you learned, you'd have to learn them the hard way yourself. So think of Ionic as an extension to your app where you can focus on what's really unique and special about your app and let us handle the really difficult native mobile challenges and integration challenges that really don't have anything to do with your unique business value. On top of the extensions, having integrations into all the functionality that your app is going to need is critical. You can't build an interesting app if one of the key components and services that you need to integrate with isn't available or is too difficult to integrate with. So we've been rapidly expanding our portfolio of integrations. We recently added Microsoft Intune, which is becoming one of our most popular services. So Microsoft Intune is a service that many of you are probably familiar with. It lets you manage apps and devices remotely and enforce security policies and things like that. So we have an integration with the Intune App SDK that makes using Intune, which is a very difficult service, one of the most difficult services I've ever used. And it makes it so much easier to integrate with. And that's a perfect example of how we're starting to solve those problems that big companies have. And we hope that you never have to worry about Intune yourself, because we'll worry about it. And every customer that has a problem or has a question, we're going to take all those lessons learned. We're going to document it. We're going to support it. It's going to be secure. And we're doing this all with our other integrations as well. So now we have Couchbase Lite, Zebra, Payments, and we're just getting started. So expect a bunch more integrations here because we just want to make your life easy. We want you to focus on what's fun and unique about your app. And then the cloud layer of Ionic is one of our fastest growing pieces to the entire experience. And if you haven't tried AppFlow, which is what we call our cloud service, I really, really hope you do, because when customers get fully integrated into it, they end up loving what it enables. The agility benefits, the deliverability improvements that it makes are really incredible. The ability to publish a live update to all your users, and we're working on some really powerful security features to make sure that the publishing and delivery of your app are very secure. Being able to automate the builds of your app, being able to integrate with your existing CI/CD service like Azure DevOps, and then publish your apps automatically to the App Store. When you start to embrace the cloud suite that Ionic offers, it's hard to not love it, because it enables you again to just focus on building your app and not worrying about mobile DevOps. Let us handle it. Let us make you 100 times faster so you can focus on your app. And on that note, like I said, cloud is our fastest growing area of focus. We are working on some really, really exciting new cloud features. And one of the biggest ones that we're not quite ready to roll out just yet is around end-to-end testing. So we've talked to a number of customers, we've done surveys, and we've built our own internal experiments and prototypes. And we think that enterprises are struggling with doing proper end-to-end testing of their apps. And we want to make it so much easier. So we are working on a new end-to-end testing service that will make it much easier to run end-to-end tests that actually test your native app that users are going to install and manage all the devices that it's going to run on, integrate directly into that cloud layer that our customers are starting to really use a lot more of. And so really excited about this. If you're interested and you want to get on the waiting list, go to ionic.io/E2E and put your info in, and we'll be in touch once we have more updates here. And we would love to reach out and learn the challenges you face doing end-to-end testing. We think there's so many problems here that we can still solve. And for big companies building really important apps, making sure your apps actually work in your users' hands before you release them to the App Store is critical. And we are so excited to help. So when you think about Ionic, historically you probably thought about us as a hybrid app company, which we now call web native development. But the correct way to think about Ionic is that we're really a enterprise mobile platform where the technology that you use to actually build the app might not be HTML and JavaScript and CSS. It might be pure native. And that's possible now because our new Portals product enables companies that have had a traditional native app development process to embed web experiences and to move faster in a way that doesn't actually force them to change their app to hybrid or make any big technological changes. And so we want to build a platform focused on enabling enterprises to be as productive as they can be, to let us work on the hard, challenging problems around mobile so they can focus on their app. And Portals is one of the biggest pieces to that. So Portals really enables us to go after a whole bunch of new mobile ecosystems that we couldn't before. And we've started to see some really exciting adoption of that product in some major apps, which hopefully we can talk about at the next conference. But really, when you think about Ionic, we want you to think about it as an all-in-one platform that does everything that you need to build amazing consumer and internal enterprise apps faster than ever before and on all the platforms that your customers care about. Oh, I have one last thing. Every good keynote needs to have one last thing. And that is that today we are super excited to announce version 6 of Ionic. So I'm just going to talk about it briefly because we've got a whole talk about it later today. You don't want to miss it. But just some quick highlights. Ionic 6 comes with a ton of new design changes for iOS and Android. So we've designed our refresher, we've updated our toolbar UI, UX, updated new filled and outline styles for inputs, and we've completely revamped our material design mode. Probably my favorite part of this release are the new UI components that we're rolling out as well. We've got the bottom sheet, which provides essentially a modal that you can slide up and down from the bottom of the page, which is a really popular UI pattern. We've got updates to the daytime and calendar, in particular to make them much more desktop friendly. We've got a new accordion component for building collapsible sections that users can toggle, and a new breadcrumbs component. So everyone always loves new components. Clearly the community is super excited about these. I am as well. So you're definitely going to love those. We've also made a number of improvements to performance and tooling. We have a new custom elements build that's more efficient and faster to load. We now enable developers to use new web development tools like Vite, Rollup, and ESBuild. We've made improvements to our TypeScript types to make events and other flows easier. And then if you're using the view router, we've rolled out some really nice convenient tools there as well. We're also moving to a faster, more reliable release cadence with Ionic. So every single year, iOS and Android disrupt everyone around fall. And we think aligning more with that release cadence makes a lot of sense. So we're going to be rolling out a more dependable, reliable release cadence that will see a yearly major update. So historically, major updates in the Ionic world were very scary. I hope everyone has noticed since version 4, updates have been much easier. The update to 5 was pretty minimal. The update to 6 is pretty minimal. And again, that's all because at version 4, we built out our shared component system using Stencil. So we just maintain those shared components. They're based on web standards. They're based on web components. And then we target React and Angular and Vue with kind of a last mile binding generation if that changes, if that framework changes, we just update the bindings, but our core components stay the same. And so updating to Ionic 6 is going to be just as easy as Ionic 5. And when version 7 comes out, it'll be just as easy as version 6. So don't worry about the upgrade process, but we're going to be doing it yearly and aligning more to the traditional native update process. So we see Ionic as really providing everything you need to deliver all the app experiences that power your business, whether it's consumer facing or internal employee facing. We want you to be able to build that with Ionic, and we want you to feel 10, 100 times more productive using Ionic than anything you used before. That's our goal. So tune in at 1:30 Central today to hear from the Ionic 6 team and get all your questions answered. I did not cover in any detail the actual release. You're definitely going to want to see this. They've got some really great examples and visuals to show off the new components. This is just a teaser, so definitely check it out at 1:30 Central today. So just to wrap up here, with Ionic, teams can deliver cross-platform apps. That's always been our bread and butter, but increasingly micro or inter-app experiences. So Ionic portals enabling native teams to bring in web experiences and mobile teams to move more quickly. And then enabling teams to build reusable components and design systems. And we see the web as the central kind of layer that enables us to do this. Imagine if we were just focused on native controls, native iOS controls. Well, there's no way we could build a reusable component system that would work on the web. And there's no way we could bring in existing web experiences. So being able to focus on the web is really a superpower. And it's one reason that we're all in on it. So this is what we're trying to enable, are these multi-form factor, multi-experience type experiences. And stay tuned for a lot more updates on that front. With that, I want to thank you all for joining us at another Enterprise App Summit. I'll be sticking around, I think, for some QA. So thank you all so much for joining us today. You're going to love the rest of the talk. There's going to be a lot of technical and some non-technical goodies for everyone who's here. So stick around, and thank you so much.